Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and drop. It's the Mediterranean platter again. Cenk, Uygur, John Iadarola, Francesca Fiorentini. Okay, how you all doing?
What's up?
Doing okay.
Okay, all right, good. We got an okay out of John. I can live with it as long as Francesca's doing well. John's always optional. Okay,
I can go.
So of course we got a fantastic show for you guys. Affidavits have dropped. Excuses have dropped. A lot of things are dropping. The power panel dropped. So we're ready. John, take it away.
I too am ready and okay. So let's do it then. As requested, the DOJ has now released a mostly unredacted version of the affidavit explaining the rationale for raiding Mar-a-Lago several weeks ago. There is still a significant amount that has not been revealed, although even inside of the affidavit, the explanation as to what sections would need to remain redacted, it's actually pretty interesting too, and we're gonna dive into all of the details. But first of all, we found out that 14 of the 15 boxes that were retrieved from Trump earlier this year by the National Archives and Record Administration contained nearly 200 documents with classification markings, and we now have more granularity about how classified they were. There were 67 confidential documents, 92 secret documents, and 25 top secret documents. Now these are obviously very important legally, but also these are important pieces of documentation. So you'll be shocked to find out that they were unfoldered, intermixed with other records, and otherwise improperly identified. They were just thrown about and mixed in with other things. So as we've talked about along the way, as we've got more details, Trump cared so much about these documents that he was willing to break the law to keep them, to obstruct an investigation to hold on to them, even after he had handed back hundreds of other classified documents, and yet cared so little that he just left them mixed with Post-it notes and recipes and stuff, I guess. But anyway, that's the first bit of information we have. We also know about why they were so worried about obstruction, as well as a number of other details that we'll get into. But Cenk, first of all, what do you think about them releasing an affidavit?
Yeah, of course it wasn't going to help Trump, and he's going to dare them to release it, and then they were about to release it. He's like, don't do it, okay? I'm really worried about it. Okay, so yeah, we know you knucklehead. Look, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not sure that in my personal life I have ever met someone as dumb as Donald Trump. So you thought they wouldn't be missing top secret nuclear documents? The government just wouldn't be missing it. And then when you realized they were missing it and they asked you 3 different times, you thought you could still hide it from them, even though they knew you had it. And then you thought the releasing of the affidavit showing what a clown you are and how many top secret documents you kept would help you. And then on the last day you realize, oh no, that's not gonna help me. Guys, he's just unbelievably, unfathomably unintelligent. Look, if he wasn't born into a $413 million wealth, look, take this in a lot of ways, maybe people get offended or whatever, but at right wing, left wing, but he'd be on a street corner somewhere. Okay, and he'd be mumbling about the same things. Deep state, Obama's birth certificate, right? Like, no, dumb as a rock, and he cannot help himself. Lifelong criminal.
Yeah, I mean, also just reading about how he handled documents generally when they weren't ripped up and flushed in the toilet at the White House in the Oval Office. It was also apparently he would take them out and show them to different diplomats, like show and tell. This is a Washington Post reported that, I believe, in the last couple of days, and So, and also he didn't have respect for the documents in the Oval Office itself. So it'd be like, we'll put this one there, we'll put that one there. Like, again, this is a man who's never gone to the library, has never had to like check out a book or like look through like a magazine or an article, and then like realize he can't actually take that stuff home. The periodicals, they stay there, that kind of thing. Obviously doesn't know the Dewey Decimal System. Neither do a lot of our viewers from the Gen Z era, but no. So yeah, I think it's good they released it. I just wanted to say that. I think it is good they released it given the fact that it's a former president. I don't think they're trying to appease Republicans. I think they know they'll never do that, and we know they'll never do that. And from reading it, it seems like, yeah, these are the potential violations of the sections regarding classified documents or other documents, not just classified documents that you cannot remove, that could face charges. You could face charges for doing. So I'm glad they did it. Nothing seems like insanely crazy. It's just backing up what we've already known.
Yeah, John. One more thing before you tell us the rest of the story. First, I realized, this might be the first plausible defense of Donald Trump, that he's so dumb that he thought it was like coloring books or something. Like he thought, no, I mean, the nuclear secrets, of course I could take them home. Top secret, it doesn't matter. I was once president. That means I own America and I own everything. Like, that's not implausible. Like, because there's no reason to take him home other than to sell him. Period. Unless your IQ is near 20 and you can't distinguish like letters and documents from one another, and you think everything is yours because you're a mental little person or whatever we're calling it these days, okay? And then the Oval Office, to be fair to him, Francesca, you say, oh yeah, he would dump things in the toilet after ripping them. Maybe he thought that's what the Oval Office was.
Just a giant toilet.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
shaped like one.
You've described him as egomaniacal and all that. That's the other potential explanation as to why he'd want to have them, other than potentially selling them. Literally just to have them, because they're his and he wants to have them. He wants to show them off. He wants to know that they're there. Possession for possession's sake seems like, I think, a very plausible reason why someone who believes that $1 billion isn't enough and you need more billions of dollars. I'll never understand that way of thinking, but I think it tracks for him. But there were several things, first of all, that were not in this disclosed affidavit. No more information about the exact content of the documents, including as to whether any had anything to do with nuclear weapons or energy production or anything like that. We don't know. But what we do know are something having to do with why they felt they needed to raid Mar-a-Lago and why some parts of the affidavit remain redacted. I think both of those parts are interesting. So they said in the affidavit, there is probable cause to believe that additional documents that contain classified national defense intelligence or that are presidential records subject to record retention requirements currently remain at the premises. There's also probable cause to believe that evidence of obstruction will be found at the premises. So they're not specific about what do they mean that there's evidence of obstruction? But that was one of the reasons they felt they needed to go. They do say that they had earlier received a written statement signed by at least one Trump lawyer back on June 3rd saying that to the best of their knowledge, there had been a search of Mar-a-Lago and all classified material sought in a prior subpoena had already been returned. That statement, they say, along with visuals from surveillance camera footage of the property that federal officials captured and witness interviews were said to be part of the concerns among investigators about obstruction. So if they had signed a statement saying, we searched, we have nothing else, and yet they had surveillance camera footage as well as witnesses attesting to the fact that there were still documents there, then that could potentially count as obstruction. The lawyer's legal statements were literally attempting to obstruct further investigation in this area. And it's also another reason why Trump might have thought he could take the documents because I'm president, I could do whatever. But the lawyers knew that he couldn't. They knew that it was illegal and they repeatedly lied about the existence of the documents to the DOJ. But in addition to that, you also have why so much of the document is still redacted, and that's pretty interesting. They say the materials the government marked for redaction must remain sealed to protect the safety and privacy of a significant number of civilian witnesses. So significant number of witnesses, in addition to law enforcement personnel, as well as to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation and to avoid disclosure of grand jury material in violation of the federal rules of criminal procedure. So they obviously want to protect the identity of law enforcement personnel, but they don't just have a witness. It's not just Jared. It's a significant number of witnesses, and they go on to say there's very good reason to believe that if those people were identified, or if even information about them was made clear, they could be identified, and then there would be witness tampering and threats potentially that would hamper the investigation going forward.
Yeah, they're treating him pretty much like a mob boss because that's kind of what he is. The government is significantly worried that the former president of the United States would harm civilian witnesses against him, or his supporters would. I mean, that's where we are today in America. And 40% of the country goes, "Oh yeah, baby, yeah!" Like they're on for that. And they like, there's nothing you could say to convince them. You know, this knucklehead let a Ukrainian national into Mar-a-Lago. You know why? Because she pretended that she was a Rothschild. Which it doesn't even make any sense because she said her name was Anna de Rothschild. That's not even a Rothschild. That's a de Rothschild. Okay, and of course he just let her walk in. She played golf with him because the idiot thought she was a Rothschild.
She had the laser, the space laser. Was like, "Do you want to take a look and see how it works?"
And Trump, because he's a conspiracy theorist and an anti-Semite and all that, probably thought, "Oh, Rothschild runs the world. Let her in." Right? And so, look, but to be fair to Trump, another one of our viewers, T-Pain89 on Twitch, came up with another plausible theory why he might have had these top secret documents if it wasn't to steal them and to sell them. He said he stole the nuke codes to nuke the hurricanes. Hashtag stop the madness. And Florida does get hurricanes, and he did think it was a good idea to nuke hurricanes. So put two and two together, and you still get an idiot.
Exactly. So why don't we turn to another angle on this? With the affidavit being released by the DOJ earlier today, people are scrambling to respond, and the guy that you see next to me is going to get the first crack at it, but we've got several different attempts to explain what's going on here. First of all, Donald Trump decided to truth about it, saying affidavit heavily redacted, nothing mentioned on nuclear. So by the way, he wanted to be released, so they released it. But if even one little bit, one letter was still Sharpied out, that was going to be his defense. Everything they reveal makes him look worse. I don't know why revealing more would be a good thing, but that's what he's hiding behind. He goes on to say, nothing mentioned on nuclear, a total public relations subterfuge by the FBI and the DOJ. We gave them much. And then he describes how the judge should recuse himself. Again, I mean, that's even more of a dodge than the affidavit is redacted. What does it matter what the judge is doing at this point? First of all, the only things that have happened, as far as I know, since the raid, is that Merrick Garland came forward and explained the search warrant, and they released the affidavit, both of which were things that Donald Trump specifically individually requested to happen. So what is the judge doing that is bothering Trump so much? But again, it's a way to send attention away from him. Don't focus on him and the laws that he clearly broke. Don't focus on the document that he requested you take a look at. No, instead focus on the guy so we can have a talk about Epstein, but not too broad of a conversation about Epstein, because then that might lead back to Trump himself. Let's just focus on Reinhart for a little while.
I do think it would have been fun had they left in like a word, like complete blackout, nuclear, and then the rest is blacked out, just to appease him, right? Just to like, no, Japan, like I don't know, whatever they have, just to like F with him a little bit, because of course they're not gonna say. That would be that's the whole point of this entire investigation. Stop making us feel like we're taking crazy pills. It is to secure classified documents that the public probably shouldn't know about, broadly, right? Like, that's what this whole thing is for, and this has been since February, y'all. We know that he's had these documents. The other thing I'm gonna say is, I made a joke about, the library, you've got to you can't check books out or periodicals out. You got to look at them through the thing and keep them in the library. Apparently, that's the same with documents, whether classified or not, when it pertains to the National Archives, and that most people who serve in the executive branch are briefed on whether or not they can, and generally Congress, okay, so you can check this out effectively, but you've got to return it, or you it can't leave the premises. But they haven't done that for presidents because they assume, and again, this is the normalcy that's been broken by this administration. They assume that presidents wouldn't just take documents, so they've never actually briefed them or made them sign anything to say that no, you can't take documents and you agree to this. What an oversight, right? I mean, in terms of that transition, and it actually might end up helping him legally and the Trump team legally being like, well, I didn't sign anything, you didn't make me sign anything, and lo and behold, there isn't. Yeah, they can't necessarily hold him to it, even if what he did could have broken the various laws.
Yeah.
So I read a theory once that it's possible that when we sold nukes to Pakistan, I believe, and this was a while back, so don't quote me on this, but it's just to give you an example, but you could see where this is going in any of these situations, that we somehow, in the nukes that Pakistan bought, not necessarily from us, made them so that they don't actually go off, okay? Now, if that's true, and it's in these documents, as an example, but it could be like 1,000 other things related to nuclear weapons, where they're stored, who has them, doesn't have them, does Israel have them, where does Israel have them? I mean, I can give you 1,000 examples, right? God, they would be so valuable. They would be so valuable and so dangerous. He left them in a goddamn closet. People, and they have surveillance footage of randos walking in with boxes and walking out with different boxes. Okay, I mean, these are the same guys who are like, stop the steal. Look at the voting areas. They're going in with boxes of votes. It's a voting area. Yeah, that's what they do, right? But when you talk about it with the top secret classified nuke information, said, yeah, don't worry about it. Continue to steal. Look, Trump fans, I don't get you, man. What's wrong with you? Like, if it was Bernie who's randomly keeping nuclear secrets in somewhere in Vermont, in Burlington, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing, right?
Yeah.
But for Trump supporters, they're like, nope, my mind is out on loan to Donald Trump. God knows he needs it, but it's not adding any IQ points.
Yeah.
It's not cumulative, okay? Or if it is, God help all of you. They're like, no. So real question is to Trump supporters. Do you think he should just keep them? Was the FBI wrong?
Yeah, they did.
Should he just keep them totally unguarded under regular routine? Regular routine, it is massively guarded by the military. No, not guarded. Well, he's got a padlock on it after the FBI told him to put a padlock on it, right? And today, one of the things that Trump was bitching about was like, they broke into my safe, right? Well, yeah, if you steal nuclear documents and put them in your safe, they're gonna break into it. That's how it works.
100%. Yeah, and if I could answer for the mug world, yeah, they think he can have anything. They don't care. It's automatically declassified. It doesn't matter if he sold them, if he put a listing up on Facebook Marketplace, they wouldn't care. I really don't think that they would. But look, that first truth had a lot going on, and it might be that coming out of it, you're not entirely sure what frame of mind is Donald Trump after he got what he wanted, which was that the affidavit was released. I mean, he's talking about the judge and he's saying it's still redacted, there's no nuclear. Maybe he's perceiving this as good news. Well, he did truth a little bit later on. It was briefer. It was in fact only 2 words, 2 of his favorite words, witch hunt. All caps, 3 exclamation points. We got it, everybody. He's basically back on Twitter. If you follow him on Truth Central, you can see him just tweeting witch hunt in all caps once again. Well, that's what he had to say. One of the things that we've brought up a couple times is the idea that they still have, which is totally untrue, that he can just declassify things by like scrunching his nose. He can do it after the fact. That's not actually true, but Joe Biden's been on a bit of a tear recently, as we're gonna get to later on the hour. He was actually asked about this theory, and here's what he had to say.
President Trump said that he declassified all these documents. Could he have just declassified them all?
Well, I just want to know, I've declassified everything in the world. I'm president, I can do it all. Come on, declassified everything. I'm not gonna comment on it because I don't know the detail. I don't even want to know. I'll let the Justice Department take that.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't want to know. I don't know. That's going to bother Trump as well. But look, if this is leaving you thinking that Trump is in a desperate position because he wanted the search warrant out and that didn't really help him, and then they wanted more details, then the nuke stuff came out and that definitely didn't help him, and they wanted the affidavit and that didn't help him. You might think, well, where do they go to now? There's nothing left to release. Well, there's one thing potentially. One of his followers, Jack Posobiec, truthed out. I think he actually tweeted this one. Trump must release the surveillance tapes immediately. So now the onus isn't even on the FBI, it's on Trump. And they're gonna find something on the tapes maybe to save him. I don't know what, something, anything, please something, God something, there's gotta be something.
Yeah. 40% of the country wants a criminal as their leader. What are we gonna do? There's nothing. They're all out of excuses. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. MAGA. Our dear leader can do anything. That's why we love America and democracy. I don't think you get it at all, you knuckleheads. No, I don't think your leaders should be able to steal our classified documents. It's not complicated.
The worst part for me, I mean, look, the affidavit just, again, everyone should read it, and especially MAGA people should absolutely read it and understand what kinds of crimes may have been committed by taking these documents out of where they were supposed to be and holding on to them and not, giving them over when they were subpoenaed for. But there's these words in like the potential violations, like whoever knowingly, whoever willfully, and that starts to scare me because we've established Trump's a raging idiot. And so the idea, like the sort of, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know I couldn't do that, Chappelle line. I feel like Trump has played that so many times. And here we have another instance. And I feel like he's, again, one of these is you cannot hold office ever again if you willfully remove these documents. Brilliant, amazing. Let's remove the threat of Donald Trump and torching our democracy yet again. So, but I think, of course, if he's got, I don't know, whatever possum squad he's rounding up for his legal defense, I don't know, like we'll see if they can fight it on that level. I just want to say on Biden, great response. Like it would have been very different had he said, I think we should take this all incredibly seriously. And this is, wow, what an affront to our, National Archives, I'm scared for my, no. He laughs it off and says, no, the DOJ is doing it. They're doing the job. And it puts so much daylight between him and the DOJ, something that the right doesn't think exists. Oh, no, Merrick Garland totally told him. And this was at the behest of Joe Biden. No, it wasn't. He's like, I don't know, let them deal with it. It seems silly to me, that whole argument that you can just wave a magic wand and declassify things. But anyway, next, I thought it was masterful.
Yeah, so last two things here. Look, Pat Ryan said the same thing that Richard Ojeda said on our air the other day. So Pat Ryan's the guy who just won in the New York 19th special election. So that was an election. He's now going to be a US congressman. It was not a primary, right? And he pulled off a 12-point upset against a Republican in that particular area of New York. And when he went on TV the next day, he's like, I had top secret classified information access. He's like, if I had done what Trump had done, I would be in prison right now, period, not even close, right? Ojeda said the same thing a week earlier on Rebel headquarters here in the TYT network. He put out a letter with Congressman Ted Lieu and others who served, saying we all had classified intelligence, we'd all be in jail right now. Why is Trump not in jail? So look, put him on trial, and if he wants to make the defense that he's too stupid to understand words. Okay, let him make that defense. Okay, I look forward to it.
I think we should probably break now.
Yep. All right, sounds good, guys. We got more amazing stories coming up, including right-wing hypocrisy on student debt forgiveness. I love that story. You're gonna love that story when we come back. All right, back on the power panel, Cenk, Francesca, John, Jennifer Peters, Ariamna, Albert, Mystic Fox, Ben Wilby, Kiwi News, all these folks just became members by hitting that beautiful join button right underneath the video on YouTube. You could also do likewise on tyt.com/join, get all of our shows anytime you want, and you support us getting the truth out there. We appreciate it. All right, John, during the break, Francesca came up with a brilliant idea. Present yourself from now on as John de Rockefeller.
And then, not D Rockefeller, just de Rockefeller.
It could be DUH and it would still fool Trump.
I'm John de Rockefeller. Walk right into Mar-a-Lago, get anything you like.
I could use a nuclear schematic. Okay, why don't we have a little bit of fun? The overall tone of Joe Biden and the Democrats this week has been surprisingly aggressive, and we're gonna have that for you right now, but we do have to balance it because it can't just be that, unfortunately. There is going to be both strong Biden and weak Biden, but let's start off with the fun side, strong Biden with this.
2020, you and 81 million Americans voted to save our democracy. That's why Donald Trump isn't just a former president, he is a defeated former president.
So that is Joe Biden. He's awake, he's conscious, he's cogent, he's aggressive, he's naming Trump, attacking Trump, mocking Trump on the campaign trail. And in fact, earlier that same day, he had been at this fundraising party where apparently the Democrats had raised $1 million. And he went broader than just Trump to talk about Trump's political movement. And he did something that I'm not sure Joe Biden has ever done before. He said, what we're seeing now is either the beginning or the death knell of an extreme MAGA philosophy. It's not just Trump, it's the entire philosophy that underpins the, I'm gonna say something, it's like semi-fascism. So even in using the F word, he only dips his big toe in the lukewarm water. But he is referring to it, at least sort of, as fascism. The political movement that Donald Trump is a part of, is the leader of, perhaps the originator of the modern version of. But we've got more from Biden of him coming out swinging, defending his record as well as attacking the Republicans. But I think it's worth stopping for a second on him actually using the word fascism. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so look, there's some moments of the speech that I didn't love, the usual, I love my Republican friends. Okay, we'll get to that later in the show. But overall, I thought it was a really strong speech. But I didn't know that he'd just come out of raising $1 million. Now it makes more sense. No wonder he's so insta-hard on that. Okay, so, but no, but like seriously, like we give the guy a lot of crap, but we always believe in being fair and credit where credit is due. It was a really solid speech. He went harder after Trump and MAGA than he has almost ever done. For Biden, it's not gonna get any tougher than semi-fascism. It's like, I'm only afraid of two things: nuclear documents at Mar-a-Lago and carnies, small hands. Semi-fascism, semi-fascism. Anyways, old school. But I'll take it. It was with vigor, and he pointed out what's wrong with the other side. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, and what he's doing here is like reasoning with the American people as to why they voted for him in the year 2020, which is not because of him. It's because of the semi and or almost full-blown fascism that was then borne out on January 6th even further, right? It's because we wanted to save democracy. And I think being real about that is the right way to go. I think being real about the threat of another Trump administration, another Trump term, or even, I don't know, a Ron DeSantis, and I want to talk about that, later in terms of his MAGA referrals. I think that's really important. That is so critical. It can't just be about, let's reach across the aisle and let's heal. It's got to be like, we are standing at the precipice. What are we doing about our democracy? So that feels like he's taking it seriously, and he's being honest about the fact that people didn't really vote for him. They voted against Donald Trump. I think the thing that I didn't like about the speech, and maybe we're gonna get into it more specifically, but he finally did drop the ultra MAGA, which is, thank God, that I don't know, AB tested dumb slogan from whomever in his administration told him you should say ultra MAGA instead of just MAGA. But his MAGA Republicans, he keeps on trying to distinguish MAGA Republicans from the people who aren't being elected, from people who don't exist, from people who have not stood up at all against their own party. I don't know, who are 3 people, maybe 5. So again, it's like he's trying to still separate them, and you're like, no, bro, this is the whole party. Yeah. You need to call it what it is. This is the party that's paved the way for someone like Trump and absolutely used him as their Trojan horse and don't care who has to die or what capital has to be stormed in order to get their way.
Yeah, well, look, as you pointed out, generally the way they run, and he even is, I guess, kind of doing it here, although in a way that we like strong, is to just point out how bad they are. What we want, ideally, is for the Democrats to tout their accomplishments, but that necessitates actually accomplishing something. And in this case, now, in the past couple of months, they've actually done several things worth touting, and he's doing some of that as well. Take a look at this clip.
Guess what? You hear Republicans always talk about the deficit, right? About big spending Democrats. Well, guess what? When the last guy was president, he increased the debt by $2 trillion in tax cuts. Not a penny of it paid for, okay? Well, guess what we did? We reduced the deficit. The Inflation Reduction Act lowers the deficit by $300 billion over the next 10 years. And that's on top of the $350 billion I reduced the deficit last year and the $1.5 trillion reduced it this year.
Yeah. Their accomplishments. I mean, of course, if I was to rate accomplishments, deficit reduction would be at the bottom of my list probably. I would talk less about the deficit reduction of the IRA and talk more about what's actually in it, what regular people will benefit from, because if all it was to do was to lower the deficit, then all you're doing is you're continuing the normal historic pattern of Democrats come in, they lower the deficit, the Republicans take over, they give it all to millionaires and billionaires. But along the way, you're not just doing that. You're doing the student loan debt and the climate change programs and a little bit having to do with the pharmaceutical industry. And so I'm glad that he's doing both, and they have to do both vigorously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so look, I like Dark Brandon. And we're kidding around about it, but we asked him to talk about jobs because when they say inflation, I said you should say jobs, because where did the inflation come from? It came from an economy that was too hot, kind of like my haircuts. So just say it. It's okay. People hear the chitter chatter. You might as well say it. So now he's saying it. He's making his own case. Finally, God bless. Good. I'm totally in favor.
Yeah, I totally agree that he should reframe inflation because it looks at it. I mean, honestly, when he's talking about, he should say corporations. He should say corporate greed. At this point in time, and I know we're going to talk about it. We're all on board with reining in corporate greed. Even Trump bit off that, in terms of the establishment, this and that. I think this is a pattern, right? We saw him off the cuff the other day, barking back at a journalist that, do you think it's fair? The people who don't own whatever private equity firms have to pay more taxes than them? No, and she was left speechless. I mean, it's good. Whatever this is, we want more of it. If they switched up the whatever, the early morning vitamins, that Metamucil plus prune juice, he's more regular. I don't know, Joe, but I like it. You're flushing out the malarkey.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, and like that response yesterday, if I could wipe that clean from people's minds. The first comment that we focused on, it definitely felt like he says, it's the entire philosophy that underpins I'm gonna say something. It's like semi-fascism. I don't think the decision to identify your political enemies as being at least a little bit overlapping with fascism is a thing that you do extemporaneously. I feel like he went into the speech knowing he was going to say that, and rather than just have it be a line in the speech, it's sort of cloaked in, well, I guess, just between me and you. But honestly, I like it. They're being, I think, a little bit more strategic about their communications, and if they're avoiding things like Francesca was saying, the ultra MAGA, I will never understand that either, then I think maybe they've had a little bit of turnover in their speechwriters or their comms team. I don't know what it is, but I like, and we're gonna have, by the way, more examples of that coming up in our next block. But any other thoughts about strong Biden before we turn to weak Biden?
Yeah, well, one last thing. Poll numbers are up. They're up to 44%. It's not like he's killing it or anything, but they're significantly up from where he was. He was in the 30s. And 30s is a disaster. So why did it go up? Easy. He's finally doing three things right. One, pass things, do things. Hey, student debt relief. That wasn't hard. Boom, you did it. Hey, you're more popular. And you passed climate change legislation. You're more popular. Of course, that's what we've been saying all along. If you pass more things, you might even get into the 50s. You might cross the, we actually kind of like you line. So, and plus inflation is down, and plus he has a more aggressive attitude.
Yes.
And shockingly, that helps you be more popular. It's what we've been saying from day one.
Yeah.
Okay, well with that, why don't we unfortunately turn to the other side of that coin? We can roll to the first video of the C block whenever you're ready.
My friends, we offer a starkly different version and vision of this country, a vision of a better America that's within our reach, that's within our hands, if we just vote.
And there it is, unfortunately. While Biden has been quite strong, the White House social media team this week has been strong, and they've accomplished things. They're worthy of praise. Again, just focusing on just vote, we've heard that before, and everybody hearing it understands that they need to vote. They know that they need to vote. They've been voting. And in fact, in the past, they voted for things that Biden is now going to imply you kind of have to vote again for. But listen to this.
If we elect 2 more senators, we keep the House and Democrats, we're gonna get a lot of unfinished business we're gonna get done. Folks, look, we'll codify Roe v. Wade. We'll ban assault weapons. We'll protect Social Security and Medicare. We'll pass universal pre-K. We'll restore the child care tax credit. We'll protect voting rights. We'll pass election reform and make sure no one ever has the opportunity to steal an election again.
So obviously all of those are good things, incredibly popular things, but the Democrats are in power right now. And sure, several of those Democrats are Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. That's clearly what he's referencing. Although, even in like fully powered up Dark Brandon mode, he's still not gonna name their names, you'll notice. And so he would say that's why we need the 2 more votes. That's fine, and I'm sure great, universal lovers of Joe Biden will say that that makes perfect sense. But they do have to grapple with the idea that, once you've taken Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, those pieces off the board, then what about Tester or whoever the next most right-wing Democrat is? It might be that they would just play ball, that they wouldn't feel like, well, now it's my turn to be shadow president, but that's a hell of a bet, a hell of a gamble to make. Why wouldn't they then use that new position the exact same way that Manchin and Sinema did? To water things down, to hamstring the agenda, to make things take way longer than they need to, and have everything be fought on their terms. It's possible that won't happen, even if the Democrats expand the majority in the Senate. But that, I think, actually deserves an argument. Has he been talking to these so-called centrists? Have they given him assurances that they won't stand in his way the way these other two so-called moderates have? What do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, look, I said earlier in the show, I like the speech overall, so I want to give you context, right? And he was much more energetic and made the case for Democrats better. But it's our job to deliver the news to you. And so we're gonna be unflinching in that. I don't believe him. What the mainstream media does is gaslight us all. And they pretend as if things didn't already happen, right? So the Democrats, first of all, for the last 40 years have been promising things and then turning around when they're in power, not when they're in the minority, but when they're in the majority and when they have all of government, then they turn around and go, I mean, of course we're gonna do all those promises. We can do 5% of one of the promises, right? And then the media all go, pretend as if that's the only thing they ever said. And then they call it historic and they say amazing, and they forget about all the old promises. In fact, then they turn around and yell at us and go, you can't actually believe their old promises. That's ridiculous. They have to negotiate. Don't you guys know how this works? So then which one is it? Are they gonna do all those things if they have 2 more senators, or are they not? And if history is any guide, there's no way they're gonna do it. They're not gonna do it with 2 more senators or 4 more senators. And it's not conspiratorial, guys, other than the wide open conspiracy right in front of everybody that lobbyists go and bribe these politicians. So what's gonna happen? Naturally, if the Democrats have 52 senators, well then as John pointed out, what they're gonna do is they're gonna go, all the lobbyists in the world are gonna go bribe John Tester more and Chris Coons more and Mark Warner more and all these other conservative corporate Democrats. They're gonna bribe until they flip 2 more senators or 4 more senators. And that's gonna work every time because the whole system is built on bribes. So here, I'll do the list real quick. He said, codify Roe. Well, that's only if you get rid of the filibuster. But remember, the filibuster protects all the economic goodies that the Chamber of Commerce doesn't want them to vote on. So there goes voting rights, there goes Roe v. Wade. And then they'll say, well, there was nothing we could do. We don't have 60 senators. Then why are you promising it on the campaign if you're not gonna actually do it? Make up your mind, which one is it? Child tax credit, no way. No, the Chamber of Commerce hated that, the donors hated it. And Americans loved it. There's no way that the American voter beats the donors. You can give them 8 more senators and they won't do it. That's my guess, okay? Universal pre-K is so easy. They should at least do that. But I'm not sure they could do the bare minimum. Ban assault weapons, I would be shocked. And protect Social Security and Medicare, they'll get a kind of on that one. So they won't, I don't think they'll deduct anything from it, although Biden has threatened that before. But hey, Nancy Pelosi just killed a Democratic bill that would have added 2% in a time where it's people desperately need that extra 2% with the inflation. And Pelosi's like, no, we were lying the whole time. We're not gonna help you on Social Security and Medicare.
I think Francesca might actually be frozen. She was gonna say something highly critical of Nancy Pelosi, and Pelosi had her connection cut. But anyway, yeah, no, look, and it's not to say that if you expand the majority that nothing will happen or that more won't happen than will if it stays 50-50. I mean, look, we're pragmatic. When Biden was clearly the candidate and it looked like that's our only bet, we told you don't expect anything revolutionary, nothing crazy is gonna happen. He's not gonna suddenly become Bernie just because he's running a little bit more progressive. But we also never told you that it doesn't matter who becomes president or that it would be better if Trump were president. The last month or so should be a great reminder of that. Not only for the victories, where Trump was definitely not going to eliminate $10,000 to $20,000 of student loan debt. He wasn't gonna pass the IRA. He wouldn't have even necessarily passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill. You wouldn't have gotten that extra aid last year, and you would definitely have at least a 7-2 Supreme Court at this point. So yes, good things can happen. We are realistic about that. Expanding the majority increases the odds that more good things happen. But let's also be realistic about the future as well as the present. They're not suddenly going to eliminate the filibuster for literally every one of our fantasies just because they win a couple of seats. If they do, great, we'll all party, we can pop some bottles and stuff, but it's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, look, I would love to eat my words. I'll eat them right here on air, okay? And it'll be a happiest day of my life. They passed all of them. They passed $15 minimum wage, voting rights, all these things that were bare minimums. But if they get 4 more senators and then they pass them, those words are going to be delicious. I'm going to tell you I was wrong, and I'm going to be thrilled to be wrong. And John is absolutely right. So there's a lot of people that are pundits or talk show hosts that love to pretend the world is black and white. Okay, so if you don't think Joe Biden's going to deliver on most of the things he's saying, then obviously you should vote for Mussolini. Mm-hmm. No, that's not remotely obvious. Or you should vote for Snuffleupagus so you can show Biden. I mean, then Mussolini will win, but it's okay. You showed Biden, you weren't duped, right? No, I'm not going to vote for a lifelong criminal monster like Donald Trump. Anyone telling you they're the same is definitely lying to you. And they're lying to you probably very, very, very likely for a financial purpose, okay? So, and one thing that Biden said in this speech that was very true is he said, look, 81 million of you came out and you saved democracy. That's definitely true. And so, yeah, by the way, by the end, when he did the student debt relief, instead of 5%, he kind of gave us 10%, which is twice as good as most Democrats. So that's damning with faint praise. But I'll give you one last analogy. It's like you're telling me, don't vote for Michael Scott. You know, he's not the most sophisticated office manager. That's true, but what's the alternative? If the alternative is Hannibal Lecter, I'm thinking Michael Scott's not so bad.
I would watch that reboot, actually. But anyway, for now, I think we do have to take a break, not only so that we can reset for a couple more awesome stories, but also to hopefully reconnect with Francesca Fiorentini. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
On the Power Panel, Cenk, John, Francesca, Militant Mark, Magnum renewed their 18th month membership. That's amazing. Gabriel, Holy Angel Dragon, gifted 5 members on YouTube. Gifted 5 members. Well, that's awesome. I love when the community looks out for one another. Music became a member. That music's on our side. We can't stop the music. So there, we win instantly. We can't be stopped. Cora. Colleen St. Pierre is also with us. It goes on and on, but I'll just read one last one here. No, not about John. We don't want that. Oh, there we go. Roger Harris wrote in. This is a YouTube member. Hey, Power Panel. Francesca, you look lovely in those colors.
Nice.
There you go. Okay. All right. I think somebody called you sexy, John, but we're gonna skip that. So
I'm gonna find them.
Okay.
Okay, well then why don't we continue actually with the news? I guess the whole show doesn't have to be about me.
You don't want to call me sexy because I'm waiting. What?
I love how he waited and waited for that.
He did wait. He waited.
We don't have time. There's only 5 minutes. Okay, let's continue. So, here at the Young Turks, we hate hypocrisy. We've in fact been engaged in a multi-year war against it. And this week we got a powerful ally in Dark Brandon in the White House, who took to task any number of different Republicans who decided that student loan debt being canceled, that is unacceptable. But all of their financial skeletons in their closet are perfectly fine. But are they? Because the White House had some receipts. They started by targeting Marjorie Greene, pointing out that when she says it's completely unfair for loans to be forgiven, well, she'd had no problem with nearly $200,000 in PPP loans being forgiven for her. And while she was the first, she was by no means the greatest, and not only because she's Marjorie Greene. No, other congresspeople had far more in loans forgiven. Vern Buchanan, 2.3 million. Markwayne Mullin, 1.4 million. Matt Gaetz had nearly $500,000. forgiven. No word on if it was via check or Venmo, I'm not sure. But it almost seemed like as this list of tweets in the thread from the White House got longer and longer and longer and got more and more retweets, well over 150,000, I began to wonder if I was the only person who didn't take out PPP loans during the pandemic. It seemed like everybody else was dipping pretty deep there. But anyway, it was great to see them doing that, to really succinctly, very easy to share, pointing out the hypocrisy. That's what people want to see. And it wasn't just that they were showing that the other side was bad. At the same time, they were defending one of their major accomplishments. When people look back on Biden's first term, the cancellation of student loan debt is going to be one of the main things they remember. And all too often, Democrats, even when they finally accomplish something, and that's not common enough, they don't then defend it. They're a little bit shy, they're a little bit nervous. I don't know if we should really run on this. It might make people uncomfortable. No, defend it strongly, and that's what they're doing, and you love to see it.
Yeah, so there's two elements to the story. First of all, the White House fighting back, to which I say, yes, Queen. Finally, okay, all right, there you go. Yeah, why don't, like these are, look guys, I've told this to you on the air for 20 years, and you must have been wondering the same thing. Why don't they do it? Why don't they do the simplest things? And they just did it. Yes, they finally did something really simple. And as we're gonna show you, John's gonna show you in a second, there's like, and I wrote this on Twitter yesterday, like nearly every right winger complaining about student debt forgiveness has had a much larger debt forgiven.
Yes.
They just think that they're entitled to it. They don't even realize that debt is forgiven. But there's like nobody. In fact, I'm going to steal one of John's. I'm going to go to number 7. My old friend Kurt Schilling. He and I beef every once in a while on social media. Okay, he says, "My body, my choice. Your loan, my responsibility. This loan isn't forgiveness. Such a lazy, unaccountable, uneducated children being covered by hard-working, debt-paying Americans." Okay, now, let me give you what Kurt Schilling did. Back in 2012, Schilling's video game company, 38 Studios, defaulted on a $75 million loan from the state of Rhode Island. He told Esquire in 2017 that he lost 50 million of it on his own fortune of his own fortune as well from the debacle, which he called the most painful time in my life. But Kurt, let's get this right. Good Americans pay their debts, okay? So where's the 75 million? Give Rhode Island a 75 million, and then we'll let you run your mouth again. Until then, have that decency to shut up about it.
Yeah.
It's like Eddie Izzard's line about, if you murder one person, it's like, oh wow, yeah, you definitely go to jail, yeah, for life, maybe even the death sentence. But if you kill like 5 million, they're like, congratulations. Do you want to be president? Like throughout history, that's how it works. It's the same with Republicans and loans. It's like once you've defaulted on 50 million, welcome to the club, baby boy. Like that's like how it works. Meanwhile, he's right about one thing, Cenk, which is he's calling people children. Yeah, a lot of people were actually children when they got suckered into these loan schemes with incredible interest rates in order to go to college because they were told this is the only way, to get a good paying job, and the only way you can actually get to college is, no, we can't lower tuition. We can't have like actually fair tuition prices that, I don't know, keep pace with like the minimum wage or just generally inflation. No, they're gonna skyrocket, and you're gonna have to pay it, by the way. And like to say nothing of disproportionately who holds those loans, Black Americans, Black women in particular. But I just want to remind people, everyone's like, it's the PPP loans are different and no. No, they're not actually that different. And let's remember, it's not just Congress people who, by the way, as if they can invest in the stock market, as Pelosi has proven and will defend. They can write legislation that benefits them. They can be in bed with lobbyists. But not only, that's Congress people. Remember how insurrectionists got PPP loans, you guys. We're talking members of the 3%ers. A guy named Russell Taylor in Southern California got $500,000 forgiven. That dude stormed the Capitol. He was indicted for conspiracy and carrying a deadly weapon. these are the people, and yet you want to come for students?
Yeah.
Just keep crying.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I know that centrists are loving to like break down. Well, is it really fair to compare these two? They're different. I don't care if they're different or the same. The reason why it's acceptable for the PPP loans to have been forgiven is the same reason that it's acceptable for the student loan debt to be forgiven. Because people took the loans to do what they had to do to survive in difficult economic times. Whether it was taking out a PPP loan or getting the degree that is required to get an ever increasing number of jobs in this country. People were put in a difficult position through no fault of their own, and thus the government needs to step in. That is why it is a valid comparison to make. And that is why we're gonna point out just a little bit more hypocrisy, by the way. So,
but hang on, John, before you move on, I just have to say one thing. If you follow the PPP loans, everyone's like they saved jobs. No, they didn't. Only 25% apparently actually saved jobs from those PPP loans. So you could argue that a student who actually completed their 4 years or more of college is 100% doing what was asked of them to receive that loan, whereas the person who said claimed that they were saving jobs did not. Have we followed up? No, we haven't.
Sure.
Just sorry. Keep going.
Well, look, Janine Pirro responded saying the sad part is there's no talk of responsibility. I apologize. I don't have a Pirro impersonation, and this is just water. It's not rosé, so this is the best I can do. The sad part is there's no talk of responsibility, no talk about contract law. The fact that you went in, you said you wanted to borrow money, you signed on the dotted line, you agreed to pay. By the way, it was revealed back in 2019 that she does not plan to repay nearly $600,000 in debts accrued during her ill-fated run for the US Senate. And look, she's by no means the only one. They just maintain this debt for years and years and years. It's beneficial to them for a variety of financial reasons. Oh, they have contractual obligations. That money was spent on things that went to corporations, and she's just not gonna pay it because it's inconvenient to do so. But let's give you one more. Stephen Moore, he said, what this bill essentially would do is give $300 billion to people who have college degrees from people who don't have college degrees. That's not essentially what it would do. I mean, how in the world is that fair? This isn't what America's about. You play by the rules and you get rewarded. If you're not paying your debts, you're a deadbeat. I mean, that's the term. And he would know, because back in 2019 also, it was a banner year for deadbeats. The Guardian cited court documents showing that Moore, quote, was reprimanded by a judge in November of 2012 for failing to pay Allison Moore, his ex-wife, more than $300,000 in spousal support, child support, and money owed under their divorce settlement. After continued delinquency, the judge ordered Moore to sell his house so he could pay what he owed, according to filings reviewed by The Guardian. Before a sale could happen, Moore paid his ex-wife about 2/3 of what he owned, and the sale was halted. So even under threat of his house being forcibly sold, even with a judge stepping in, he only paid 2/3 of what was owed. And that means he didn't pay at least $100,000, which would go a long way towards actually paying for a college education. So it really does all come full circle.
Yeah, so look, I'm gonna give one last example, but before that, just look, the right wing and left wing have different mindsets. I was lucky enough to pay all my loans, and when I see other people getting their loans forgiven, I'm ecstatic for them because I empathize. We know the pain of paying those loans, and it shouldn't be this expensive, and I'm thrilled for them. The right wing has had way bigger debts canceled, but they think, well, I'm entitled to that, okay? Yes. Yeah. But that bum isn't entitled to it, even though it's like 1% of what you got, right? Because they just me, mine, right? And that's what we got to deal with now. So if you think I'm being too rude, I'm gonna knock you out of the water right here. So you know who else has debts? Trump.
Yeah.
So every Trump supporter is out there going, I can't believe they paid off the student debts. First of all, in today's news, Trump is being sued because he owes $1.6 million to a right-wing vendor for True Social, and he just won't pay him. He never pays anyone. He had 6 bankruptcies, and in all this, so those 6 bankruptcies combined, he wiped away billions in debt. Yet MAGA guys go, yeah, of course that's smart business. You never pay the billions. You don't pay any money. You stiff everybody like our beloved Donald Trump. Oh, students got $10,000. Bums.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right wing mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, we're massively out of time. All right, everybody check out Bitchuation Room in our podcasting network and Twitchuation Room in our Twitch network.
Yes.
Everybody check out Damage Report all over our network. Okay, and John, on your way out, even though we're massively out of time, fine, I'll read it. YouTube member Spanking Spider Dragon said, wow, sexy dragon daddy. The main show is now awesome. My Friday just got better. Oh, hi, everyone else.
Hi, everyone
Okay. All right, more amazing stories when we come back. Come right back.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.